Hi, and welcome to the At Peace Parents podcast. I'm Casey, and I'm here to empower you in your decision making as a parent of a demand avoidant child. My goal is to share insights that will generate aha moments and support your connection with your child. I'm a mom of two amazing little boys, one of whom is PDA, and I've worked with hundreds of parents just like you to teach them how to lead their child out of burnout and find the clarity, peace, and sense of community they need. What are the 4 things that regulate a PDA child or teen's nervous system? So I'm going to give you guys a mini training on this because this framework has helped not just me, not just my husband, but so many of my families that I work with structure their thinking around how to support their child's nervous system. Okay, so basically there are 4 things that regulate a PDA's nervous system, especially if your child is in burnout. These are the 4 things you want to be thinking about. 1, hi everybody. 1 is screens. 2 is another safe nervous system that's deliberately signaling safety. 3 is a special interest, or what Harry Thompson calls the PDA flow. And then the 4th is dopamine novelty sensory seeking activities. Okay, so those are the 4 categories. I'm going to give you guys examples of each and then show you how we apply this thinking in our family to make decision making a little bit easier. Okay, so first of all, with screens, this is a regulating experience for the child's nervous system. That's not to say there aren't instances in which screens can tend towards addictive behaviors. We're not going to talk about that today because that's another topic. But often when parents are trying to get their PDA child off a screen, they're thinking about it in terms of how parents of neurotypical children think. So it's like, oh, my child has had 2 hours of screen time that has filled their screen cup and now it's sufficient, right? And we think about that in the same way about how we give our children undivided attention and play with them and sort of fill their attention cup, right? Like, oh, I played with my kid for 4 hours. Now that should be sufficient, right? But if there are only 4 things or states or scenarios that regulate the nervous system, when we're taking away the screen, we have to replace it with something else that regulates the nervous system. So we can't just ask a PDA child, can you get off the screen? Taking away that nervous system regulation without replacing it with one of the 3 other things, right? Your undivided attention and signals of safety, or another safe person, an opportunity to engage in their special interest or flow, or dopamine, sensory seeking, and novelty, right? And so many of you have probably noticed this pattern, and what it's going to look like is when it's not one of those 4 things, they're sort of trying to demand your attention, or they're escalating or getting into more equalizing behavior. And you're like, well, I just played with them for 3 hours, or I just gave them undivided attention, or they just got off the screen. But that mindset is like parent of neurotypical thinking mindset. Okay, the second state that makes them feel safe in their body is when there is another person who they implicitly can sense is not heaping on expectations for them for how they behave, how they act, and if they follow directions. Okay, so the other safe nervous system is not just like a nice teacher or a nice grandparent. People can be perfectly nice and wonderful humans, but are not going to feel safe to your PDA child if they're not allowing for autonomy, deliberately signaling equality, and also have an element of caregiving, especially if you have your younger child, right? A younger PDA child, which might mean like bringing them food on the couch when they say, I'm hungry, right? So that is safe nervous system, okay? The third type of scenario that regulates the nervous system of a PDA is engaging in their flow. Harry Thompson calls it flow. We can also think of it as a monotropic focus, singular focus, or a special interest. Remember that for PDA individuals, this can be social in nature, right? And this is discriminatory in the sense of like not any person will do. It's often like, who are the friends that they're most interested in engaging with? Who is the superhero that they are interested in role playing around, right? Who is the one person, like in our household, I have an au pair, a service dog, her boyfriend's living with us. He's also from Colombia. My husband, me, my other son, William, who's 4, and my PDA son. He is very, very fixated on my au pair's boyfriend as like his special interest in some ways. He has other special interests like dogs, like long form addition he's really into right now. He is really into playing certain video games, but he has special interests that rotate that you have to sort of be aware of, right? But it's really important to remember that these are social in nature, but discriminatory in the sense of like, it's not just going to the park to play with any random kid there, right? Okay, so the fourth, which is often something we forget about because we're often thinking through the lens of like low demands, lowering demands, reducing expectations. But often if our kids are dysregulated and they're not on a screen, they're not with another safe nervous system, they're not engaging in their special interests or able to, which is true for some children in burnout, they might need dopamine, novelty, sensory seeking opportunities. So you might have seen this with your child where they appear completely typical when you take them to a water park with their best friend and bring the iPad along and you're there signaling safety. And this is what can be so confusing for parents, right? But you have all 4 elements there of like special interest friend, dopamine and novelty, new water park, you're there, making sure they have everything they need. They sense safety. And then you have a screen as backup, right? But this way of thinking, it can feel oversimplified, but it can also help you structure your day when you're thinking about how to get through long stretches like we just had over our Thanksgiving holiday where both kids were home for 9 days. So let me give you an example of how my husband used this to get through his Sunday with both kids, because I was really at the end of like my capacity to co-regulate and be with the kids and just needed a break. And I had taken the day before in the afternoon caregiving shifts. We like sort of separated into who's the lead parent, who's the safe nervous system, who's the caregiver, right? So he's like, okay, I have most of Sunday. How am I going to get in all these elements, right? So that it's not just his nervous system the whole time, which is what exhausts you. Okay, how can I bring in, screens, special interests, and novelty? So he came up with like, let's take he took the kids with the service dog to see a Disney movie at 10:30 in the morning, right? So he's got novelty and screens, so his nervous system can rest a little bit. Then he had a break. Well, my mom came over and we like had all the dopamine because we made gingerbread houses. So there was like sugar and excitement and novelty. And obviously like you tailor these to who your child is. Like some kids need this less, some kids need this more, right? This is just a way of thinking about it. And then in the afternoon, my husband took the kids to a nature conservancy because my PDA son's like enduring special interest is animals. Like he loves animals. And so, it was a way that he structured his day as a dad, and you can do so as a mom, a dad, caregiver, even a therapist, thinking about this, how to help regulate that nervous system, but also balancing it with the element of your nervous system, right? Because that is another primary accommodation. The last example I want to give is just from last night, which was like a perfect combo of all these things where it wasn't a screen, but my husband, our service dog Diesel is having a hard time at school recently. So my husband and I have had to be going into school each morning, one of us, to support being the handler and make sure the training is reinforced. And working with the trainer, my husband has learned about, there is a puppy class for improving the confidence of our 92-pound, almost 3-year-old service dog, black lab. And it's a puppy class. And so he was like, oh, that would be the best combo of these things for our son, Cooper, which is like his enduring special interest, which is dogs, novelty, excitement, sensory, getting to hold all the puppies. And so they actually got to go last night. And part of it was like our dog met the other puppies, but they actually, all the participants, the owners got to hand around the puppies in a circle. So my son got to like hold a new puppy every 5 minutes. It was like the perfect example of like special interest or flow, novelty and sensory, and having my husband there as another safe nervous system. And so he was not interested in the screen, right? So this is like an equation that I want to just provide for you to start thinking about, how to incorporate these elements in a way that works for your family. And so hopefully you can, balance it with your nervous system, because I know that gets exhausting for you guys. Thanks everyone for being here with me at the At Peace Parents podcast. This is your source for all things related to understanding, supporting, accommodating, and advocating for your PDA child. To go deeper on any of these topics, check out my course offerings and masterclasses at the website www.atpeaceparents.com. To completely transform the way you think about and relate to your child and to bring peace and stability to your home, join us for the next cohort of the Paradigm Shift program. Enrollment is now open until January 11th, 2023.